All right. I guess you can tell your story first.
Okay, so this is one of my dreams that has been happening to Jason, and there are these beings that were in my dream, and I was in my room, specifically in my room.
These are beings we've seen on real life when we take Tapentadol.
And everything was where it was supposed to be. The walls were in the right place. The lighting was the way it was supposed to be. My bed was there. Everything. Just right down to the T. But I knew I was dreaming. It was not real life. And then I had someone walk up to me with the most, like, undescribable face. I can't even describe it to you. And when it got right up in my face, its eyes just stared right into my eyes.
So it wasn't a person, it was one of the Bodocs?
It seemed like a human, but it wasn't a human. Like, there were eyes. I couldn't make out if there was a mouth or a nose. And there was a head, obviously, with the eyes. And it walked up to me.
Did you feel fear?
Right
was it scary?
Yeah. It was pure fright. And it said something to me, and I forgot what it was, and then I woke up in the exact same spot. Like, holy shit, I was just dreaming about being in my room, and something walked up to me.
Whoa.
And I had one more.
Did you wonder if it was there in real life?
I looked around the room, I couldn't see anything that I couldn't expect to be there. It was just me.
Yeah, mine. Damn, I never heard about that. Alright, mine, I have a few, but the one that I had the most recently was I couldn't close my fingers. And in real life, I do this thing where I reach, some of you know about this, at them, and they, like, can, if I reach long enough, and onto Tapentadol or acid, I can feel them, like, tugging on my fingertips. It feels like they wrap, like, Chinese finger traps that are ethereal little tentacles and start pulling on these three fingers, only on my right hand. But in the dream, I wasn't able to close my fingers on this hand. I was like, why aren't I, like, able to close? I thought that I had, like, carpal tunnel or something in my hand in the dream. Because I was trying to grab stuff and, like, interact with stuff in the dream, and then my other fingers started not closing. And then the more I used my hand, like, each time I tried to, like, use my hand to close it, it took just a little bit more strength. And it started to feel like I had an ethereal stress ball, like those stress balls that you squeeze. And it was getting harder. It was taking more and more strength to close, and it was on both hands. And then in my dream, I couldn't close my hands at all. Eventually, it's just something was just holding my fingers open like this, and I couldn't close my hands or use my hands or do anything, and I was terrified. And I woke up, I think, from the fear, and I just woke up, like, thinking, like, fuck, I hope this isn't a taste of things to come, like, in real life, because that already kind of happens in real life. That was one of them, and another one was, I was tied down on a table, and they weren't ethereal in this one. They were, like, full beings, three-dimensional. They look like the Predator with his cloak on. If you've ever seen the movie Predator, they're, like, see-through, but you can see they're there. And I can only see them in the pitch dark. Sometimes I see them with the lights on, but it's only, like, streaks and smudges. And if I see streaks and smudges with the lights on, I know that if I turn the lights off, I'm going to be able to see them fully. And this is on Tapentadol that I'm able to see them. Tapentadol is, like, where this all started. Tapentadol mixed with Benadryl, like, allows you to be able to see these things, like, that are really actually there. It's just their shields are, like, on their cloaking devices, like, They must be just outside of our normal senses. Because I can't see them on any other drugs, really, except for tapentadol and Benadryl. But anyways, I was on this operating table and they were uncloaked and they were holding this panel over my face. Looked like this big. But it was like a screen. Like a computer screen, but it was like a tablet, like a big tablet. And it was a mirror of my head and they were holding it like this far from my face. And I could see inside of my head, like the blue, I could see like 3-dimensional blue of all the electricity inside my head. I could see my neurons firing and stuff. The purple represented my thoughts. I could see like where my brain, like my thinking, where my thoughts were in my brain. And those are the only 2 colors I can remember, but I think there might have been a yellow or something. I could see different colors that represented different things going on in my brain. And I was like, this is fucking really cool. I'm like, able to like just know what this stuff is, like the colors and stuff. The blue was obviously the electricity going on in my head. And it was cool for like 25 seconds. And then I started to feel this cooking feeling, like it was a microwave panel, and I was like, and I could hear the noise like inside my head, and it felt like my head was being It felt like how I'd imagine it'd be to stand your head in a microwave, like if you could move your head through the door of a microwave, and turn it on so that only your head is microwaved. It feels like that, and I was like for like maybe 10 seconds, and then I woke up in like sheer fear, and I was under my blankets. It was one of those times when you know how when you're scared in a dream, if it's from fear, when you wake up immediately and you're fully awake. It doesn't take like a few seconds to wake up as if it's just like a regular dream. When you're like scared out of your mind waking up from a dream, as soon as you wake up you realize you're fully awake, you're fully like in real life in like a second. And the feeling of the microwaving continued for like another 4 or 5 seconds, like in real life, and I was like, holy shit. Like, and then it stopped happening, and then I was just like, what the fuck? It makes me wonder if it was real, because things from dreams aren't supposed to carry over like that. I wonder if I really was on like some table and they were doing that. Like in The Matrix, when the Smiths bring him in and he thinks that it's a dream, and then they put him in the back of the car and he realizes it's real and they pull it out. That's not the first time that's happened, that I've had like abduction, like things happen to me from the Botox, that they're like clearly doing something to me. What was the other one? There was a first time. It was a long time ago, like 3 years ago. I told you about my first Botox dream, didn't I?
Mm-hmm.
You remember what it was?
Mm-mm. I just remember you told me.
It was like 3 years ago. Maybe I already told that story.
Was it the one where you walked into that pyramid in Egypt?
No.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I told that story already in the video.
Was it the tentacle dream?
Oh, when I went up to the North Pole, the North Pole, and they started coming out of the beam of light and just putting ethereal Rubik's Cubes everywhere in the room, and they could move through walls. That was a crazy one. There's a lot more to this dream, but I just want to tell the end of the dream, because I might have already told this one. So the Botox came out of a beam of light that went down into the center of the earth. There was a room of people sitting around, watching other people like walk up to this like pillar of light going up into the sky. It was, if you've ever seen Star Trek, The Wraith of Khan, when Spock gets like radiated to death at the end. Have you ever seen that? And then they ship him out. It was a beam of light like that, but it went all the way up into the sky, and it was like this big around, and it went down in the center of the earth. And even in the middle of the day, which it was, the beam of light was so bright that it just went up into the sky like the Luxor pyramid spotlight does.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really high, and people would walk up to this beam of light and stick their faces in it. And they'd be like, holy shit. And people would be sitting around on all 4 sides of the room in seats, like 4 rows thick on each side, like maybe 20 people long on each side. And watching people, you were allowed to do this if you had the balls. walk up to this beam of light that was in the center of the room, and it was like science. People just wanted to see people do this because something would happen to them, and it was like just first being discovered, and anyone could just go up there and do it. And they were like, "Oh my God, there's a whole ecosystem down in the earth. The earth is hollow. There's light inside of it. There's like beings like moving around in these motorized vehicles. They could see like down into the beam, and around the beam was like things rotating around it. And I really wish that if I knew this was a dream, I would have had the balls to do it, because I really wanted to see what they were seeing. But the reason that I didn't do it is because I knew that when the people pulled their head out of the beam of light, they were blind. They couldn't see our world anymore, but they could see this other world. They could see the Bodok world. They could see, because those were the Bodoks down there. They had like a whole planetary like system like of, you know, revolving around the beam all the way through the earth, because it was lit up really well. And hollow. And the earth was hollow, and there was a beam of light going all the way through it and all the way down to the South Pole and out that. And the third, so I watched two people do this, and I was just like, man, I really want to see what they're seeing, but I don't want to go fucking blind forever and be stuck in only seeing Bodok world. Like, pretty much, you're blind, you can't see this world anymore, right? But if you put your head in that beam, it replaces this world with that world. It's like when Neo dies in Animatrix Resurrected. Remember, he can't see this world anymore, but he can see, like, the robot world? That's what was happening to these people. And the third person did it, and then after the third, he's like, oh my God, they're coming up here. Everybody, they're coming up here. Like, every one of them stopped what they were doing and just started coming up, like, rupturing up, and then everybody else could see them the way we see them with the lights off, just like in camo mode. We can see their outlines and shit. We can see where they are. Everyone else could see them. And they had these, each one of them had these little Rubik's cubes, these little cubes. And they could move through us, they could move through walls, but we could see them through the walls. We could see them through walls, like people who weren't blind. They could see the real world and the Bodoks, because I could. I mean, they came in with these Rubik's cubes. They started putting them like 20 feet away from each other in all these different directions. So there's one here, 20 feet that way, there's one, 20 feet that way, there's one, 20 feet that way, and 20 feet that way, in this giant grid. So that nowhere isn't covered, and tons of them. They could move really quickly too, and they were putting these Rubik's cubes all over the ground. They'd go through the walls. We could see them through the walls, just farther away looking. And they were just putting Rubik's cubes everywhere, all over the land, until they were out of sight. And then the Rubik's cubes formed into like real metal-looking objects and started growing these swords, exactly like in Terminator 2. You know when the T-1000 is over at his mom's house, and you find out his dad's like, shut up, you fucking mutt, to the dog, and he's like, there's something wrong, the dog never barks. And then he's like, Wolfie's just fine. And then he takes his hand, switches the phone, and teaches the husband not to drink out of the milk carton. I'll teach you to drink out of the fucking milk carton. And then the sword is going through his face. The cubes started growing these swords, like metal ones, longer and longer like that everywhere, and they were just getting longer, thinner, and sharper, just like the Terminator arm. And everyone started running out of room to move around. And they were covering the whole earth with these. So like everyone on the planet was fucking having this happen. There's these Rubik's cubes like 20 feet away everywhere, and those swords are just growing longer, and just I was watching other people die before I was, and I was just like, everyone was just like moving to like areas where the swords weren't yet. Because the swords were like, they were getting slower. Like at first they'd grow fast, and then they'd slow down, and then they'd keep slowing down. So by the time they were long enough to like stab people, they were going really slow. And I was just one of these people, and eventually I'd probably watched like 20 other people die before me this way. And then just eventually there's swords everywhere from all these different angles from these cubes just going into my body. And I'm just like, and I could feel the pain, and and I woke up just like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck was that? Like, why am I dreaming about this shit? That wasn't the one, it was another one. There was one when I was talking to Caleb, and Caleb was in the dream, was like, you need to stop doing this stuff, like, stop taking Depensadol. I was just telling him about them. I was like, yeah, I probably should, but And he's like, they're not real, it's just a hallucination. And I was like, okay, then just do me one thing. Stick your fingers out like this and wiggle them like this. And move your hand. And he was like, all right, if you'll shut up about it. And he starts doing it. He's like, see, there's nothing there. Like, and then he's like, wait a minute. Wait, oh, and I can actually feel them right now for real. On this finger. Right now. Because it takes a few seconds to start feeling them.
Mm-hmm.
So when I reach my hand out in real life, I can feel them. It takes like a few seconds. But they know the motion. They know this motion. And the more you do it, the more like they hold on to your finger. And he was doing it, he's like, wait a minute, I can feel, wait. And right as he started feeling it, we both started seeing from right here, ethereal tongues, like lots of them, like 5 thin, long ethereal tongues, going up like this, just going up the finger like this. And then we could see teeth, like right around here, like the tongues were this long, and a big open mouth, and this really scary looking beast with like really scary bald skull, like bunches of wrinkles, like a 500-year-old, if it were able to live that long, beast that like might have used to be human, but its skull was all deformed and it had a huge head and like giant razor sharp long teeth and a huge mouth. And it bit his hand off once it was like fully formed, once you could see its head. It bit his hand off and it was like, ah! And I watched this thing just devour Caleb in this dream with its teeth. And then it said to me in a very demonic, horrifying voice, it said, we're not going to kill you because you are the key to bringing us more souls. Mm-hmm. You will... Basically, they were like Mr. Grimm's. You know how in Twisted Metal 2, when you die at the end, Mr. Grimm's, like, his ending is like, feed me, Calypso, I'm hungry. And he feeds him all the souls. Those things were like Mr. Grimm. They were like, you keep feeding us souls, and you're the key to all of this. Mm-hmm. So we're going to keep you around. We like you. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up. Mm-hmm. So holy shit about that one. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, that was another one. That one was fucking crazy. In this one, somebody figured out in the Great Pyramid of Egypt there was these hieroglyphs on the side of the pyramid. Let me just make sure it's still recording. And somebody like moved their finger in the hieroglyphs like this in the sand. They like brushed off some sand on the old pyramids and saw there were these hieroglyphs. On one of the faces, you know, there's 4 faces. It was the Great Pyramid, and they brushed off just the right area. The only area that had this ancient sand, like enter your finger code. It was like an ancient finger code. You know, you have to like type in passwords with numbers and a door opens. He like moved his hand through all of the little patterns that were in it in just the right way with his finger. And this huge cement door just like lowered like this. It was probably 50 feet wide, 20 feet tall, and it went back like maybe 10 feet into the pyramid. So if this is the side of the pyramid that it's on, and it goes like this, in this big triangle, it was like this big of a section of the triangle. And it just 50 foot wide, 20 foot tall section lowers like this into the dirt. And then it goes like 20 feet back, and then it's just a black wall. And he stuck his hand in the black wall. And I was just a camera angle in this dream. This was like a movie. I didn't exist. I was just floating around in the dream, like watching this, but not as a person. Well, it's weird. Some of my dreams I'm a person, like I'm actually me. I've even had dreams where I'm not me. And I've had dreams where where I'm just a camera angle. This was one of those. He stuck his hand in the black, and it was like watching Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he sticks that cartoon hole on the wall, and he sticks his arm in it. You remember that? One of the toon holes. Mm-hmm. It was like that. It was just a solid wall in the black. So he went to town. He told some people in town, and it was like this. It was like a 20-minute part. Like watching this guy go back to town. It was like watching a movie. This dream was a movie. People were laughing him off. People were like, "Yeah, you're okay. Try not eating like 10 grams of shrooms the next time." And he got a few people that were willing to go with him. back to the pyramids. And one of the guys stood behind and watched. Like Jafar at the Cave of Wonders, when he stands back and watches Aladdin and the monkey and all them go into the Cave of Wonders, because he doesn't want to go in because he knows he has a bad feeling. Like only Aladdin can be allowed in.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know what was going to happen to these people if they went in there. And they went in there, and you hear these like horrific noises and shit. Like, didn't sound like people being scratched up or anything. It just sounded like horrible noises. I wish I could remember. I wish I could hear them again because I can't remember what they sounded like.
Like, was it the recording from Event Horizon? You remember?
I
that
can't
part?
remember exactly what the noises were. I just remember you
Like
hear these weird
shrieling,
noises.
shrieking,
Yeah.
stuff like
And
that.
they didn't come back out. So we went back into town, and he like gathered another bunch of people in there, in town, and he got like even more people. They were like, really? You again? They're like, you lost 3 people are dead, and the people like, they were gone, and they're like, okay, so Rahim and Mahik have like disappeared, and like didn't come back, and this is the only story anyone's got that they went into this black. So they believed him on that note. A bunch more people came with flashlights, and they came like with more stuff, like video cameras, flashlights, like maybe 10, 15 people, and they went in there, and the same exact thing happened, but this time people were recording it, and people watched people go in there with flashlights, and they brought the footage back to town, and then it became a World War matter. Like, there, by the third time, there was a big SWAT team. It was on the news. It was being broadcast around the world. There were helicopters. There was military. There was like just, this was a big fucking deal now. And they got this like huge SWAT team with guns, like all this battle gear, to like just like 50 to 70 people, like stampeding into there. And then you heard the noises again. And then they got an even bigger team of SWAT. The fourth time was where the dream comes to the tip of the iceberg. They got this huge giant SWAT team, like 200 people with like spacesuit gear. They were even more equipped than the first the first guys. They had like stormtrooper battle guns and shit. They didn't have like machine guns. They were like the best the military had. And they went in there, and this time you heard blasting, like lots of it, and you still heard, and this went on for a while this time. For like 3 minutes you heard just like this fucking people blasting and screaming. You could hear the people screaming, you could hear the horrific noises. And then it just went silent for like 15 seconds, and then the whole entire pyramid rose up on hydraulics, huge hydraulics that were under each corner. These hydraulic beams that were probably like 10 feet wide each, metal, just started slowly lifting the whole pyramid. And then underneath the middle was this giant hole that went down probably like 50 feet wide down into the earth, just down into the dirt. And these fucking demons come like pouring up out of it, just like in every direction, like all like out of the hole, just in every direction, just pouring it, like covering it, and just slaughtering everybody. And shortly after that, everybody in the world heard the voice of Satan or something. I heard this voice, and I knew that it was telepathic, and it was to everybody in the world. And I can't remember what it said. It was in some other language, but it was in such a terrifying voice. Probably like 20 seconds after all the fucking demons came up all over the place. 20 seconds after that, I heard, everybody did, this really loud voice that wasn't in the air. It was like in our minds. And it was saying something in some other language, and I was just like, and I just woke up in this like sheer fear. I had like goosebumps. And I was just like, oh my God. Why am I dreaming about that? It's just, I mean, the horrifying dreams are the easiest to remember. And I've just been having a lot of those. It's like, they're kind of funny, they're like entertaining later on, but they're like, is this a taste of things to come? Like, because these aren't even things that I even think about at all. A lot of my dreams in my life are things that I'll wake up and I'll remember like, hey, I remember thinking about that earlier on in the day. Like, I'll dream about things that I was thinking about. It's my own personal dreamland for, like, most of my life. And nowadays, it's like other entities are sneaking thoughts into my head, and I'm dreaming about things that were never my thoughts to begin with. That's like, my dreams used to be a lot more personal. I would wake up and remember them and be like, I remember thinking about that. I remember that actually did happen, but in a different way. Like, I'd dissect my dreams and be like, yeah, these were like my thoughts. Like, I remember these things somewhere, like, from my real life, but now my dreams are just like, at no point ever was I thinking about the stuff that happens in them. It's like something else is getting into my... It kind of makes me feel like the warrior in Diablo, when he like kills Diablo and he takes the soul stone and he thinks he can harness the power of Diablo and he jams it into his head, and then he harnesses it for a while and then he starts turning evil and he becomes Diablo.
Mm-hmm.
That like kind of actually seems like what's happening to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe because of my dreams, but like if those are a taste of things to come, some of those things kind of do happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I don't fucking turn into a monster.
Mm-hmm.
Right now I can control my thoughts. Right now, while I'm awake, it's still me. But when I'm dreaming, man, it's like they can get in my head or something. I don't think those are my thoughts. Like, all of those things are things that I never even remotely thought about. Whenever I have a horrifying dream, it's like, where the fuck did all of that come from? I thought dreams were like folders of your thoughts. From, like, dreams, you can see that it pulls the resources from this world. Like, the Great Pyramids of Egypt, those are in this world. People with cameras, like, things in your dreams are like things, resources pulled from this world. I don't think your brain can make up something in your dream that isn't something that wasn't in your thoughts. That's why I think something else is getting in my thoughts. In fact, I'm pretty goddamn sure of it, because they've already proven they can read my mind when I can see them. When I can see them, I think, stop moving around. I'm not saying anything, and they do. In the room, and I'm like, throw something at me, and then they do. And I'm like, okay, nod for yes. Shake your head for no, and I'm like, are you demons from hell? They shake their head no. Are you my dead brother? They shake their head no, and I'm like, oh my god, they're reading my mind. So they're in my mind, but I know they're there for real, because when I reach for them, I can physically feel them. Physically, I can feel them. I think that's how you know something is real. If you can physically feel something, like your vision and your hearing, you can hallucinate, but I don't think I've ever hallucinated a feeling. You can just tell with a feeling. So there's that. And then they've proven to me they can put thoughts in my head. But I needed to be on acid and tapentadol for this. And I was able to, that's when I had that like root coming out of my head, the antenna looked like a melted road cone, and I could see one of them next to me, and this is the first and only time I've ever seen this melted road cone antenna coming out of my head. It looked like a road cone, like the size of one. Like if you imagine a road cone that's really flexible and melted and hanging off to the side. And this Bodok was putting these little spheres, they look like racket balls. Later on, I thought about this, and I was like, holy shit, have you ever seen The Neverending Story 2? You remember those memory spheres in that movie? They're like this big. They were those fucking memory spheres. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh my god, they were putting memory spheres in those spheres. You know how you like every time he makes a wish, he loses one, and he doesn't remember what that memory was. In this one, it was the opposite. These were my memories. They were putting them into my head. It was in pitch darkness. I wouldn't have been able to see this if I wasn't in pitch darkness. And I could, as soon as they loaded it in there in the darkness, I could see the memory. And it was memories of earlier that day and my highlights of things that I paid attention to while I was on acid. I was like, and this is when we went to Ken Carl over by Lockheed Martin building. And I was like, oh my god, there's the memory of me looking through the bush, laughing at how it looked when I looked far down there. There's the memory of me looking at the hill, like all breathing crazy. There's the memory of like a bunch of people walking dogs on the path. That one I could see really clearly. Mm-hmm. And then the memory would be there for like 15 seconds, and it would like take up my whole vision. It'd be like half as bright as the real life memory. And then it would start fading again. And then as that memory would fade out back into blackness, being able to see this fucking being next to me that I call a bodox. It was one of them, would fade back into being able to see, and then it would have another sphere, and it'd be like, and it'd put this thing into this like antenna. I think maybe there used to be in our evolution, the back of our heads. I think the reason they're soft right here, like your skull quits right here, is we used to have, or we still kind of do, this antenna. There's this extra thing that comes out of our heads, but it's ethereal, and I was able to see it on acid and tapentadol, and something was putting memories in my head from earlier that day, and that's when I realized, oh my god, these things are sharing our experiences with us. The thing had my memory spheres, it knew what they were. These fucking bodocs are sharing our experiences with us.
Mm-hmm.
When I listen to music, I feel tugging on my fingertips, especially when I listen to Liminal Division. And that song has a really strange, like, no song makes me feel like that song. When we blast Liminal Division, it sounds like the express elevator to hell. That's what I always imagine. That's the Burning Man song.
Mm-hmm.
That song makes me feel like I'm on the express elevator to hell, but it is such an awesome song. I suggest checking out Liminal Division by Surgery Head. Liminal Division. If you have a real stereo with subwoofers, blast that shit. It is fucking... But these things start tugging on my fingertips while I listen to that song in real life. I think they hook something up to you somewhere, and those, whatever they hook up to your fingers, they're like downloading my like joy from how intense that song is with these tentacles. I'm convinced of it because they had my memory spheres. They can get in your mind. They can get in and out of your mind. They can prove to me that they can read my mind, and they can prove to me that they can put memories in my head that are mine.
Mm-hmm.
That's some weird shit, dude.
How could it possibly be?
I don't know, but it's fucking for real.
But it is.
Yeah. It's really weird. So it's like, if these kinds of things are happening now, then maybe these dreams are a taste of things to come. I hope they're just funny movies right now, but who knows where the future leads. Maybe I am the warrior in Diablo.